Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting review of television type stuff, because that's what I do now. I don't know when this became a thing, but literally while I was watching it tonight, I'm like, oh, I better pay attention. I've got to put this in my review. I'm like, wait a minute. I guess now I'm reviewing live theater on television. So today I want to talk about Grease Live. I am in the central time zone, so it actually just got over like I don't know, 20 minutes ago, something like that. Um, so I wanted to kind of give my opinion on it as a former theater actor uh, and a former musical theater actor. And yeah, basically kind of drum up as much, I guess, hype for it as well. Because whether I like it, hate it, whatever, I'm happy that they are starting to bring live theater to television. Um, Having grown up doing acting and stuff like that, and spent literally almost the entirety of my high school experience either playing music or acting on stage, primarily in musical theater. It is an amazing, wonderful thing, and I love the fact that they're bringing musical theater to a whole new generation of kids that may not have been familiar with it because their life is kind of absorbed with the internet and staying at home and stuff like that. Like people just don't go out to theater anywhere near as much as they used to, um, and it's also giving really well-known actors the chance to play roles that they never would have been able to play simply because they generally tend to do. Film, which has a very demanding schedule, and it's a very weird schedule, or television, which again, very demanding schedule. Um, and being able to do something like a Broadway show is literally at least a year of your life that you give up to do the show, no matter how long the run is. Generally, you're giving up around a year of your life. And it's very, very difficult. So it's not something a lot of Hollywood actors get to do. And I think that's a bad thing because theater acting, it's different than film acting. And you learn a lot from doing it and being able to gauge how well the audience reacts to you. Like it's a very amazing thing that I really love. So my opinion overall of Grease Live, eh, it wasn't bad. It wasn't something that was like, I have to turn this off. I sat through the entire thing. There were quite a few parts that I really enjoyed, but overall, everything just kind of seemed, eh. Um, the two leads were Julianne. I want to say Howe, something like that. She played Sandy, and then Aaron. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher everyone's names. I'm actually going to look to see what else he's done. Aaron Kyle Tsvet. It sounds Eastern European. He apparently was Enjolras in the film adaptation of Les Mis, but he played Denny Zuko. Um, their performances specifically, I was not thrilled with. Um, uh, as far as the acting was concerned, they just seemed very wooden. It seemed very forced. They didn't seem very comfortable in their shoes, and so I had a hard time watching them because for the most part they were reciting lines as opposed to really getting into their characters. Singing, both of them had very very good voices. One of the issues that did kind of pop up throughout the entire show, audio mixing was an issue for large portions of the show. Grease Lightning, great, great song. You couldn't actually hear the soloists. The music overpowered the soloist, and it was almost like they hadn't mic'd their soloist very well, which due to the fact that the set that they built for that one was relatively large. And I didn't see any lavaliers or anything on the actors themselves. There's a very good chance that they were just attempting to pick up their performance either through hyper-directional microphones like shotguns and boom mics, and it just wasn't working very well in that particular scene because they couldn't get them close enough just because of the wide shots and how large it was. So as far as the two leads, they sang very well, but the emotional aspect of it just really wasn't there. And I had a hard time believing they were the characters that they were pretending to be. Vanessa Hudgens played Rizzo. It came to light, I think, like 6 hours ago or something like that. Apparently, her father literally just passed away within the last day of cancer. And so she decided to go on with the show and dedicate the performance to her father. Um, Even with the fact that she was dealing with something that could potentially take out a professional actor. Um, a death in the family like that would be more than reason enough to put your understudy in for something like that. So, despite the fact that she did that, she was actually one of the most believable characters on stage from an acting perspective. She put on a little bit of an accent. Like everybody in the show had a little bit of an accent to try and kind of match uh, the the vernacular of the movie and things like that. Her accent didn't slip. Most of the other people, their accents slipped on a fairly regular basis. Sometimes they'd have an accent, sometimes they wouldn't. And that was very difficult. Vanessa Hudgens didn't. She kept her accent through the entire thing. There are worse things I could do, which is Rizzo's kind of big solo. She did phenomenally well. I thought she was really, really good. Um, uh, Even had I not known that she was going through something incredibly difficult, I still would have given her very high marks. Um, the fact that she was as good as she was, in spite of the fact that she had this incredible personal turmoil going on, just speaks amazingly to her acting abilities and just her professionalism. Like I said, if something like that were to happen on Broadway, I don't think there is a director in the world that would not allow an actress, as long as there was an understudy, an actress to kind of bow out for a performance or two to deal with that. So yeah, that was really, really good. Um, the guy playing Kaniki was Carlos Penavega. Again, for the most part, I'm going to kind of lump everybody together. Just about everybody on stage felt wooden, and it just wasn't. It wasn't as good as the Wiz Live. Um, I didn't get to see Sound of Music live or Peter Pan live, but comparing it to that and then comparing it to the movie and the stage show, it just wasn't as good for the actors in general. Carly Rae Jepsen, who played Frenchie, she was the other character that I really enjoyed. Now, part of this may just be an unintentional bias due to the fact that I really enjoy Carly Rae Jepsen's singing and things like that. But I thought she pulled off the part fairly well. She was not quite to the level of Vanessa Hudgens. She still had a few of those wooden moments where it's like, oh, she's saying lines now. But overall, I thought she did very well. The one thing I didn't like about her performance, and it actually had nothing to do technically with her performance, and everything to do with the fact that they inserted a new song into the show that did not fit musically with the rest of everything in there. The show itself is All I Need Is an Angel. The song itself is All I Need Is an Angel. And for those of you that aren't familiar with, or those of you that are familiar with Grease, this song happens right after Frenchie drops out of beauty school, and it happens right before beauty school dropout. I have to think that they put the song in there specifically because they cast a very well-known singer in a part that had no solo, and so they had to give her a solo. Um, and she did well. Like, she sounded really, really good when she sang it. It's just the song itself didn't fit with the feel and the instrumentation and everything of the rest of the show. It felt very poppy, and the show itself is much closer to kind of classic rock. 50s style rock and roll. That's what the entire show was about. And this just didn't. It felt like 2000s pop, bubblegum pop type stuff. It just didn't really fit. But other than that, like, I liked Carly Rae Jepsen's performance. I thought she did well. I enjoyed when she was on stage. I enjoyed when Vanessa Hudgens was on stage. The rest of the actors were not bad. They just weren't good either. They were just nah. The other person that I liked, Mario Lopez, I thought did a pretty decent job playing Vince Fontaine. He was in the very beginning when you get introduced to his character. Again, just like everyone else, he had this very wooden delivery, and then he went up and he had to kind of do the rhyme scheme that Vince Fontaine does in the movie, and that's when he kind of fell into the groove. With the fact that this kind of wooden acting was a universal thing across the cast, to me that points to a director giving poor direction. Um, if you have one or two people that make similar choices in a show, and you can kind of see it, you can kind of blame that on the actors. When the entire show has this same feeling, it's generally a directorial issue. Or with television, it could just be a producer that's making insisting on certain things, but it's somebody that's in charge. It's not the actor's specific decisions to make this when it's almost a universal thing. So I'd have to say, whether it was a bad producer or a director that just didn't understand what they were doing, that hurt the show, in my personal opinion. Like I said before, there were a lot of issues with sound. There was one part where the sound cut out completely. It was during hand jive. The sound cut out completely. During Hopelessly Devoted to You, the sound became really, really bad, where it sounded almost like it sounded like our television had blown a speaker. However, I know that didn't happen because later on the television was absolutely fine. Um, it was just right around that song. So they had a lot of issues with mixing and sound sampling and things like that, which happens in live productions all the time. However, this is the first time I had seen it or even heard about it mentioned in any of these live performances, which was, again, a little bit upsetting. Especially since, again, I want more of these things to happen. I want them to get better. One of the comments I made about the Wiz Live is that it's done completely without an audience. This time, and I mentioned before, it's like, this is theater. Part of theater is having an audience. That's how it works. It's one of the things that makes it such a unique medium. This one did have, technically, it did have an audience. However, and this is something that really, really bothered me about the entire thing. Seeing the other ones that I'd watched and seen little pieces of in that, I was expecting kind of a theater show shot live. That's what Sound of Music was. That's what Peter Pan was. That's what The Wiz was. This one was not. What they did is they kept boasting about this through the entire production. We have 20 acres of sets. Apparently, I believe total, it was only, I think, 3 different sets. Or 3 different sound stages with a bunch of different sets that they would move and stuff like that. And so in between scenes, the actors have to get onto a tram, travel to the next set, and then get out, get through wardrobe and everything like that they had to. And because of that, the sets themselves looked good to a point, but it wasn't theater. And it wasn't television. It was kind of this hybrid that didn't work. The actors were a little bit frazzled from having to run between, sets that were far enough apart that they actually had to be driven between sets. You had technically 3 different audiences because the audiences aren't going to switch between sets. Um, and the audiences were actually on stage, which is another thing that I think was almost removed the idea of having an audience. Technically, at that point, they weren't an audience; they were extras. So yeah, they had an audience, and the audience was allowed to applaud at certain points. But the audience is on camera a lot of the time, so they can't react the way that they're supposed to. They have to be coached. They have to behave a certain way, and that's not how live theater works. And I think just like The Wiz, the production suffered from it. The times when the audience got to be the audience, I know Grease Lightning, the audience got to be the audience. And there was a couple other songs where they got, they got to applaud and they got to just sit back and watch as opposed to being a part of the production. I thought were better because that's how theater works. Theater is done in front of a live audience. You feed off of the energy that the audience gives you, and to be quite honest, the audience can't give that energy if they also have to be a part of the show. It doesn't work that way. So I didn't like how the entire thing was staged. I would have preferred them doing it on one stage with a static, audience, and just do it how literally hundreds of productions have done it, where they build a bunch of sets and they change scenes and things like that. One of the things that got old really, really quickly because it was such an obvious technique. If you watch the movie, one of the things that happens is when they do things like Grease Lightning, you notice that they kind of go into this fantasy world and they look a lot different. And the car looks different and everything, and their suits look different. They did that in a number of different pieces, which I thought was kind of cool. But the way that they did it was they would just do a massive close-up on the actors doing something so that you physically couldn't see them wheeling off the car and bringing out a different one. Or they had one where, who was it? It was Marty, who doesn't have a solo in the film version, but the actual stage version, she has this song. But she sings about her Marine that she's pen pals with. So what they did is they just did this massive close-up of literally all you could see was right about here. And then when you pulled away, she'd actually changed costumes. While the camera was that close, you couldn't actually see her changing the costumes. And all she had to do was hold her upper body and head very, very still as she changed costumes. Now, they did show that the way that they did that was they had this really, really great costume designer who designed her little nightgown. And what it was, the nightgown was Velcroed. And we found that out very quickly because the mics picked up the very loud as she changed the first time. But it was Velcroed so that as soon as the thing came up, she could just go, and then she'd be in this really gorgeous red evening dress. And they kind of built the set so she could walk through a wall and a camera would follow her, and then she would be on a USO stage to kind of fit with the theme of the song. And again, it gave you that kind of fantasy feeling. And then the 3 other pink ladies came in I think it's called Waves, Women in the Air Force uniforms, and so it was this USO thing. And then when she went back on, they had it set up so she could just do that again, and she would have a second nightgown that looked identical to the first one underneath it. So that was kind of cool. However, I hated the fact that they felt that the only way that they could do this was these unbelievably obvious close shots, kind of like a magician sitting there going, everybody look at my hand, don't look at this other one, don't look at anything that my right hand is doing, everyone focus on my left hand. No, really, you have to see my left hand. Trust me, my right hand's not doing anything. And that's kind of what I got every time they did it, because they were very much not subtle about it whatsoever. You could tell when they were going to make a big change to the set that you were supposed to think with magic. And to me, it was insulting to the audience. Um, and it came off as hokey. And I think that was what a lot of the production, they wanted to try and, and this is a thing that they keep falling into over and over and over again, is the idea that, well, we're doing a live theater production, but we're television. We can't just put on a live show. We have to do things that television can do because we're television and that's what we do. And I think that is their biggest downfall right now, is the fact that they're trying to turn this into something just wholly unique of these live shows on television, and they're trying to do all these things that you can't do on stage. Like you can't just do a close up of the actor so you can change the scene around them on stage. You have to be more clever if you don't want the audience to be able to see what's going on, and use various lighting techniques. Like I've seen shows that have done exactly what they were trying to do, with just very obvious close-ups in front of an entire audience of people, and none of them noticed, simply because they knew how to use lighting, and knew how to direct people's eyes naturally as opposed to forcing them. Um, so yeah, overall, it wasn't a bad show. Um, I didn't. They kind of did a hybrid of the stage show and the movie version of it, because the shows themselves are actually relatively different. There's quite a few overlaps, and if you watch the 2007 Broadway revival of Grease, they actually took a lot of things from the movie and put them into the stage show, so that people that were only familiar with the movie would still find things that they understood and would be able to be familiar with in the stage show. However, this one took a very bizarre mix. Like they took some things from the stage show, like Marty's song did make it into the movie. It did. It's always been in the stage show. They had other songs that were just very, very weird. Like technically, um, "Grease is the Word" um, isn't in the original stage show. They did bring it in here, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know who it was that uh, sang the opening. Oh, here it is. It's Jessie J. I should probably look into that. Da, 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 da. Yeah, English singers. Okay, yeah, I know who Jessie J is. All right, so Jessie J sang "Grease is the Word" at the beginning, and this is another thing that I saw throughout the entire show, is that the people that were singing, they were not singing in their vocal range. One of the things that suffered immensely was the baritone, like the low baritone range of the show in general, didn't exist. Everyone was singing high baritone and tenor, even if the song itself was supposed to have baritones. The only one that didn't have that, I think, was what is it? You're the one that I want. You're the one that I want. Actually, had baritone and bass in it. Everything else was entirely tenors, which again, to someone that used to sing baritone and bass, took me out of it immediately, because those are the parts that I pick up because I used to have to sing them. So I didn't like that. And when Jessie J sang "Grease," it was low for her range. And so the only time she sounded really, really good was when she started to sing higher and start belting. Everything else just sounded like she was reaching for it. The same thing with Arian Teviet, I want to say. I don't know. Anyway, the guy that played Zuko. And this is something I don't understand, because the part itself, at least from the movie version, it's a tenor part. Like, it's a solid tenor part, and goes into quite a few high tenor parts. And yet, I don't know if it was an issue with breath support, or the fact that he had so many other things that he was doing. They'd only been doing this, I think the whole production was about 2 months, which is not unheard of on Broadway. It is unheard of um, for a traditional film actor. Um, you have much more time, and you don't have to do everything in one take. So because you don't have to do everything in one take and you're able to learn things in pieces, it's much simpler to do. So it might have been just a different format that he wasn't supporting correctly, but breath support in general among the entire cast, save, like I said, Vanessa Hudgens was good. As the show went on, the girl that played Sandy, Julianne Howe, whatever her name is, her singing got better, and I'm much better supported. And even Aaron got better as the show went on, but there was a large portion of the show where just no one was supporting their voice, and everything came off just a little bit weak. And again, the emotion wasn't in a lot of it, so it just felt depressing when you're familiar with what it's supposed to sound like. Um, so yeah, overall, it wasn't a bad show, and there were some standout performances. The choreography for Born to Hand Jive was very, very good. All the dancers looked like they were having an absolute blast. Had it not been for the sound cutting out during that portion, I probably would have enjoyed it more, but the technical difficulties made it hard for me to enjoy it completely. Um, like I said, Vanessa Hudgens did wonderfully, despite the fact that just she was going through some massive shit. Carly Rae Jepsen, I enjoyed, and I really enjoyed seeing Didi Khan in there. Didi Khan was the original Frenchie in the film. Um, she plays V in the in live, and it was fun seeing her on stage again. It was fun seeing her interact because she has a whole scene where she speaks with Frenchie, and it was actually really fun seeing her interact with herself, basically with the character that she played. You know what, 20, 30 years ago, I think it was, even longer than that. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that. They also had the guy that played. Who was it? Barry Pearl played. I can't remember. He played one of the T-Birds. What was it? He played Duty, one of the T-Birds, and he had a cameo in it as well, as kind of like a manager type thing for Vince Fontaine. So it was cool seeing him in it. Overall, again, I'm always going to recommend see it at least once. It'll probably be on Hulu starting tomorrow. Sit down, watch it simply to see how they're doing it. And if you've never seen Grease at all, watch it because you'll probably enjoy it. If you've never seen the stage show, there's probably going to be quite a few parts that are very surprising to you because they're taken directly from the stage show, and they didn't show up in the movie at all. So you'll get a few surprises. Overall, nothing was really, really bad. I think The Wiz was better than this one. I enjoyed The Wiz a lot more than I enjoyed this one. But overall, it wasn't bad. And with everything that was happening with Vanessa Hudgens and her father and everything, that probably affected more than just her. That probably affected most of the cast, just because working together for 2 months like they did, you become very, very close, and news like that can really wreck a cast. So that might have had something to do with it. It might have been nothing. But overall, like I said, the show wasn't great. It wasn't bad. So please, please, please watch it so that Fox gets the idea that we want more of these. Hopefully the quality will continue to improve. I really, really would like them to put an actual audience in as opposed to extras that aren't paid. Um, I really want them to do this as an actual stage production, because I think it will turn out so much better. And it's got to just be somebody at Fox going, no, 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 nobody goes to Theta anymore. I have no idea why I just turned Australian for that, but let's go with it. Um, so yeah, it's got to be somebody at Fox that's going, no, 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 no. We can't make this theater, but that's what Grease Live is. Like we're toting is this is live theater. Well, no, 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 no. We're television. We have to do this like television does it. We can't do it like theater. Um, So yeah, I really, really, really hope that whoever that guy is either gets fired or gets just out of the way so they can actually do live theater the way it's designed to be done. Add some television flair that you couldn't do in a stage show. 100%. You know, that's great. However, um, keep, you know, the basics of what make live theater great, you know, in there. Give them a live audience. You know, don't use 20, you know, I think they said, I want to say they said something like 20 acres is how much space they had to film this in. So don't, you'd never have a 20-acre theater ever. It just, you're trying too hard to distance yourself from theater, and you shouldn't. Theater's starting to make a revival in certain circles with the fact that things like Rent has been they're taking stage shows and turning them into movies all the time. You know, you have everything as far back as the Phantom of the Opera, Rent, Les Mis, Hairspray, Mamma Mia. You know, they're doing this. Jersey Boys just came out. What is it? Last year, the year before, which was phenomenal. I loved it. Um, you know, you don't have to distance yourself that much from it. Okay. And when you're toting it as live theater, make live theater. You know, I think it would be better that way. So yeah, that's my review. It's really, really long. If you guys got to the end of it, congratulations for you. This is, it's not as long as the show is. The show is 3 hours. So, I mean, that's better than that. But anyway, that's all for me today. I will see you guys probably tomorrow with random vlogging or something. All right? Bye-bye.